A man who can walk away operates from a foundation of deep self-respect, and that is the core reason women respond so powerfully to him. When a man truly values himself, everything about him communicates strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, grounded certainty of someone who knows who he is and what he stands for. Corey Wayne often emphasizes that attraction is not something you force, chase, or negotiate. It's something that grows naturally around a man who is rooted in his own identity. Self-respect is the fuel behind that identity. When a man refuses to abandon his mission, compromise his principles, or betray his emotional integrity just to keep someone in his life, he becomes a man that women instinctively admire. Why? Because he demonstrates that he is not dependent on anyone to feel whole. When a man has self-respect, he doesn't operate from scarcity. He doesn't cling. He doesn't fear loss. He understands that relationships are voluntary. The woman who wants to be in his life will show it through consistent actions, genuine effort, and emotional investment. He doesn't beg for that energy, nor does he reward inconsistency with attention. Instead, he allows people to reveal where they truly want to be, and that allows him to maintain his dignity without unnecessary drama. Walking away is not an act of ego, it is an act of loyalty to oneself, and women feel that difference deeply. They can sense when a man is grounded versus when he is acting from insecurity. A self-respecting man is also attractive because he sets the emotional tone of the relationship. A man who respects himself doesn't chase validation. He doesn't collapse into anxiety when things are uncertain. He doesn't compromise his boundaries to gain affection. This emotional stability creates a gravitational pull. Women respect and trust men who can hold their ground, men who remain centered even in moments of tension or conflict. This kind of emotional discipline is rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. It's not arrogance, it's certainty. He knows what he brings to the table, and he trusts that what is meant for him will remain without him needing to perform or please excessively. Women are biologically and psychologically drawn to strength, not the superficial kind defined by dominance or bravado, but the inner strength of a man who is independent, secure, and clear in his direction. When a man can walk away, he signals that he doesn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. That independence is incredibly attractive because it indicates he would likely be reliable, stable, and difficult to manipulate. A man who needs a woman more than he needs his own self-respect becomes easy to control. A man who values his self-respect above all cannot be swayed by emotional pressure. This makes a woman feel both safe and challenge two emotional states that fuel deep respect. Self-respect also shapes how a man shows up in daily interactions. He doesn't overextend himself trying to win a woman's love. He doesn't bend over backward to impress her. He doesn't abandon his responsibilities, friendships, or goals. Instead, he maintains a life that is full, purposeful, and meaningful with or without a relationship. This abundance mindset makes him more appealing because he is not trying to escape loneliness or emptiness by attaching himself to her. Instead, she becomes a complement to his already fulfilling life. The dynamic is magnetic. Women don't want to be a man's entire world. They want to join a man whose world is worth stepping into. A man with self-respect also communicates clearly and honestly. He doesn't hide his standards or act in ways that betray his truth. If he is treated with disrespect, he addresses it calmly. If the behavior continues, he leaves not to punish, but to protect himself. That ability to detach from situations that don't serve him communicates tremendous inner worth. Women respect men who communicate through actions rather than words. The man who can walk away shows he means what he says. He demonstrates that he will not stay in a situation where his value is diminished. This creates a natural accountability that often inspires women to show up with consistency and genuine effort. At its core, self-respect is the ultimate source of masculine energy. It is what gives a man presence, discipline, and emotional power. And a woman's respect is rooted in her ability to trust this strength. She respects the man who stands firm in who he is, who refuses to tolerate disrespect, and who remains committed to his mission regardless of who stays or leaves. When a man can walk away, he sends a clear message. I value myself. I choose my peace. I am not afraid of loss. That message, spoken through his actions, is why women only truly respect men who carry self-respect as their foundation. Emotional independence is one of the strongest qualities a man can cultivate, and it plays a decisive role in how a woman perceives and respects him. When a man is emotionally independent, he doesn't seek approval to feel good about himself, nor does he allow another person's behavior to dictate his emotional state. This strength is rare, and because it's rare, women naturally gravitate toward it. Corey Wayne often teaches that relationships thrive when both partners maintain their individuality, but many men lose themselves the moment emotions get involved. They start overinvesting, overthinking, and overreacting in ways that make them appear needy. A man who can walk away never reaches that point because his emotional center is grounded within himself, not in someone else's attention. A woman feels safe with a man who is emotionally independent because she knows he won't crumble under pressure. When he faces uncertainty, he doesn't panic, chase, or attempt to force connection. Instead, he stays calm, observes, and lets things unfold naturally. This calmness is what creates dominance, not the aggressive kind, but the steady, composed type that commands respect. Emotional independence shows a woman that the man is capable of handling life, stress, and conflict without falling into emotional chaos. That reliability becomes attractive because it signals long-term potential, a partner she can trust, lean on, and admire. Boundaries become sharper and healthier when a man is emotionally independent. He doesn't tolerate behavior that erodes his dignity. If a woman becomes inconsistent, disrespectful, or manipulative, he doesn't argue, complain, or plead for better treatment. He simply removes himself from the situation. He knows that arguing for respect is unnecessary. It should be freely given. His emotional independence allows him to detach from situations that drain him rather than trying to fix or force them. And that ability to walk away with composure leaves a strong impression. Women respect men who act with emotional discipline, men who do not react impulsively but respond intentionally. Another key element is that emotional independence reduces expectations. A man who relies on a woman for happiness becomes demanding and emotionally heavy. He expects her to soothe him, validate him, reassure him, and make him feel whole. This creates pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction. However, a man who is emotionally independent brings lightness into the connection. He doesn't need constant reassurance or attention. He enjoys time with her, but he also enjoys his time alone. He doesn't panic if she is busy or unavailable because he has his own life to return to. This lack of emotional dependency creates space, and space allows attraction to breathe and grow naturally. Women test men emotionally, not always intentionally, but instinctively. They want to see if a man can remain stable under emotional friction. A man who is emotionally independent passes these tests effortlessly because he is not controlled by fear of loss. He listens, communicates clearly, and reacts with maturity. When something doesn't feel right, he doesn't lose himself trying to fix it. Instead, he trusts that the right woman will meet him with alignment, not confusion. This trust in the process, and more importantly in himself, signals high value. Women deeply respect men who know they deserve reciprocity and are not afraid to withdraw their presence when it's lacking. Furthermore, emotional independence prevents a man from giving too much too soon. Many men sabotage relationships by overinvesting without receiving equal effort. They initiate constantly, accommodate excessively, and try to earn affection. This behavior reveals emotional insecurity, but a man who is emotionally independent invests proportionally to what he receives. He matches her energy, not exceeds it. This mirroring shows confidence and emotional balance. He is not afraid to slow down, step back, or take space with either. By doing so, he teaches her without speaking, and he values mutual effort, not one-sided giving. This independence also reinforces his identity. He doesn't shift on what he thinks she wants. He doesn't abandon his hobbies, goals, or dreams just to fit into her. Instead, he keeps his identity. This authenticity is magnetic. Women respect men who remain themselves regardless of who enters their life. It shows strength, stability, and inner power. At its core, emotional independence is about freedom. Freedom from fear of loss, freedom from insecurity, freedom from attachment to outcomes. This freedom allows a man to choose relationships consciously rather than cling to them out of emotional need. And when a man demonstrates this level of inner strength, women feel both admiration and respect. They don't feel responsible for holding him together emotionally. They feel inspired by his stability. A man who is emotionally independent doesn't walk away as a strategy. He walks away because he refuses to betray himself. This mindset is what commands a woman's respect. When she sees that he can stay or leave without losing his emotional balance, she realizes she is dealing with a man who is complete on his own. And that type of man is impossible to manipulate, effortless to admire, and unforgettable to love. When a man is genuinely willing to walk away, he sends a powerful message about how much he values his time, energy, and standard. In relationships, most people underestimate how much their behavior communicates. A woman doesn't just listen to what a man says, she watches what he tolerates. She observes what he accepts, what he lets slide, and how firmly he stands behind what he believes he deserves. A man who stays in situations where he is undervalued, disrespected, or given inconsistent effort unintentionally teaches others how to treat him. But a man who is willing to walk away, calmly, confidently, and without drama, shows through his actions that his life, his emotional peace, and his self-worth are non-negotiable. This is why women respect men who live by their standards instead of negotiating them. Women recognize the difference between a man who walks away out of pride and a man who walks away out of principle. Pride is emotional, principle is grounded. The man who walks away because his standards aren't being met isn't trying to punish anyone. He's protecting his dignity. He refuses to invest where he doesn't feel valued. He refuses to chase where the energy isn't reciprocated. This level of self-respect commands admiration because it demonstrates inner strength. Women instinctively respect a man who doesn't need to cling or beg to maintain a connection. Instead, he knows exactly what he offers, and he trusts that someone who values him will naturally meet him at the same level. Walking away also shows that a man operates from abundance rather than scarcity. Scarcity makes men desperate. It makes them tolerate half-hearted effort. It makes them settle for inconsistency and mixed signals. It makes them fear losing someone more than losing themselves. But a man who is willing to walk away shows that he believes in himself, his worth, and his ability to attract someone aligned with his standards. He views a relationship as a choice, not a necessity. This mindset makes him more attractive because it shows he isn't dependent on a woman to feel confident or complete. Women respect men who can stand alone because it means they choose the relationship, not cling to it. When a man values his time, he doesn't waste it on situations that drain his energy. He doesn't stay attached to someone who doesn't invest equally. Women notice when a man stops overextending himself. They notice when he stops chasing. They notice when he no longer accepts breadcrumbs. His behavior shifts from trying to prove his worth to simply observing who matches it. This shift creates a powerful dynamic where the woman feels both inspired and challenged. She realizes she cannot take him for granted. She realizes she cannot keep him with minimal effort. And this realization restores the natural balance of respect. A man who is willing to walk away also raises the quality of relationships he attracts. When he holds firm to his standards, he filters out people who are not serious, not aligned, or not emotionally mature. He no longer becomes a magnet for drama or emotional gain. Instead, he attracts women who appreciate consistency, clarity, and character. His willingness to walk away ensures that the relationships he does engage in are built on mutual respect, effort, and emotional alignment. This is how he creates a peaceful, fulfilling romantic life. By refusing to settle for chaos or superficial connections, walking away also prevents resentment from growing. When a man tolerates disrespect or low effort, he often becomes frustrated, angry, or emotionally drained. These emotions build silently and eventually explode, damaging the relationship even further. But a man who walks away early, not out of impatience but out of clarity, prevents this buildup. He chooses his peace before he chooses his attachment. This emotional maturity is something women find highly admirable because it shows discipline, self-awareness, and restraint. Another important aspect is that walking away is not about giving an ultimatum. It's not manipulation. Real walking away is silent, it's calm, it's final. The man simply removes himself because something no longer aligns with his values. He doesn't argue, convince, or beg someone to treat him better. He knows that respect cannot be forced, it can only be inspired. This is why women respect more and walks away. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful aspects of masculine strength. Many men hear the word detachment and assume it means being cold, emotionless. But true detachment is what they have formally described as something completely different. It is the ability to remain emotionally centered no matter what happens around you. It means you don't cling, you don't chase, and you don't crumble under the pressure of uncertainty. This is the kind of strength that women deeply respect because it shows a man is in control of himself, not controlled by the relationship. A man who can walk away from a situation isn't heartless. He is simply grounded. He knows that attachment fueled by fear leads to desperation, and desperation always destroys attraction. Detachment allows a man to approach relationships from a place of abundance rather than neediness. He doesn't feel threatened by setbacks, distance, or emotional fluctuations. He gives space without anxiety. He allows a woman to move toward him freely, without pressure or expectation. This lack of emotional clinginess creates a sense of freedom and comfort that women find incredibly appealing. Masculine detachment amplifies desire because it stops a man from over-pursuing. When a man over-pursues, he unintentionally signals insecurity. He shows that he fears losing the connection. But a detached man moves with balance. He initiates when it feels right, but he doesn't force closeness. He returns the energy he receives rather than overwhelming the woman with constant attention. This creates a rhythm in the relationship where both partners feel comfortable leaning in. Women respect this balance because it allows them to express interest without feeling smothered. What makes detachment so powerful is that it requires emotional maturity. Not every man can control his impulses, especially when he feels affection, attachment, or fear of loss. But a man who can walk away demonstrates that his emotions do not dictate his behavior. He feels deeply, but he acts rationally. He cares, but he does not cling. This emotional discipline becomes a form of leadership in the relationship. A woman recognizes that she is with someone who remains stable even during emotional friction. That stability makes her feel safe, and safety is a foundation for respect. Detachment also prevents unnecessary conflicts. A man who is emotionally reactive argues more, complains more, and tries to control outcomes. But a detached man doesn't chase arguments or try to force understanding. He speaks calmly, he listens. And if the energy feels off or the situation becomes disrespectful, he steps back instead of trying to win or control. This calm withdrawal is powerful because it communicates self-worth without a single word. A woman respects a man who does not engage in emotional chaos. She sees that he cannot be baited into drama or manipulated through emotional intensity. This earns her respect because he demonstrates that he values peace, clarity, and emotional intelligence. Another reason detachment strengthens masculine presence is that it preserves a man's identity. Many men lose themselves in relationships. They abandon their goals, their routines, their standards, or their growth the moment they fall for someone. Their world begins revolving around the relationship, and their masculine edge dulls. But a man who practices detachment maintains his sense of self no matter who enters his life. His mission, purpose, and discipline remain intact. This consistency makes him more attractive because it shows he has direction. Women respect men who stay committed to their path regardless of emotional circumstances. Detachment also creates polarity, the natural energetic pull between masculine and feminine energies. When a man is grounded and emotionally self-reliant, he embodies the masculine. When a woman feels free to express emotion, softness, and vulnerability, she embodies the feminine. These energies work together only when the masculine remains stable. A detached man doesn't collapse into emotional neediness. He doesn't mirror chaos with chaos. He remains the calm center. This calmness draws the feminine energy toward him naturally, without effort or force. Women respect this because it feels natural, safe, and compelling. Walking away is the ultimate act of detachment, not as a strategy, not as manipulation, but as an expression of inner strength. A man who can walk away shows that he chooses himself before he chooses approval, attention, or temporary affection. He shows that he will not tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional games. And when a woman sees that he can leave without bitterness or resentment, she recognizes his power. She knows he is with her by choice, not dependence. Ultimately, detachment makes a man unforgettable. He becomes the man who doesn't beg, doesn't break, and doesn't betray himself. He becomes the man who stands firm in who he is. He becomes the man women respect, admire, and desire, not because he tries to be wanted, but because he lives in a way that naturally inspires respect. Detachment is not about loving less, it's about loving yourself enough to never lose your sense